ओम परतत्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We are studying here Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, and we are reading the last chapter named The Real and the Apparent Man. And up till now we have studied in that Vedanta is not only Advaita, but there are gradual developments of thought or consciousness, namely Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita. And then Swamiji has said that even Vishishtadvaita is Dvaita in a way. So if you take all these shades of Dvaita, they will tell you something, and then we'll find the Buddhistic thought which will contradict all of them, and the reconciliation we shall find in Advaita. Telling this, he has given us the many beautiful thoughts of Dvaita. And then he has said that the Buddhists are telling us by force of psychological analysis that you are talking of body, mind and soul. But have you pursued the soul any time? Mostly you are pursuing the body, and you are not pursuing the mind even. And rarely you do pursue the mind, at that time you are not pursuing the body, nor the soul. And soul you have never pursued. So why do you assume that there is a soul? Body is the name of a continuity of cross changes. Mind is the name of a continuity of subtler changes, and that is all what we can perceive. It also amounts to the dualist experiencing only the qualities, that is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, and assuming that there is a substance in which these qualities are inhering. And the Buddhist is asking us, are you experiencing that substance? Or you are just surmising, inferring? You are experiencing only Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. And what right have you to assume substance? Can the world not be explained in itself? Why do you assume a soul? And this logic is very, very sharp. No school of dualistic thought can stand on its scrutiny. But the Advaita comes to our help, and it reconciles both of them, telling what you felt, O Dvaiti, that there is a substance is right, but you are not perceiving it is also right. And unless you have a direct perception, you have no right to say about it. And it tells the Buddhist, what you say is perfectly true, that we are not experiencing that substance. But your qualities are continuously changing. And how do you understand a change? Only by taking your stand on something which changes less. Ultimately, there has to be something unchanging where you can understand the change. If you see the change, then you have to be constant. Otherwise, how can you see that what you experienced yesterday or previous second has no relation to what you are experiencing now? Unless you remember both of them to compare. So the experiencer of the previous second, if he is also lost, then who compares? So the main point is that even if you assume that everything is zero, who perceives that zero? So the perceiver can never be denied. And what you say is true, that we are not experiencing him today, but we can experience it, and we can experience it only when we give up the experience of the gross or the subtle matter. So, in that way, he reconciles both of them, shows the true part of both of them, and after that we have studied. And he concludes by giving the example of a snake and a rope, that when you see the snake, you do not see the rope, but when you see the rope, you do not see the snake. Now from here, today's portion, he is now describing in detail what is all according to the Advaita thought. So we read now, there is then but one all-comprehending existence, and that one appears as manifold. We experience the manifold, and when we shall experience the one, we shall not experience the manifold. And then, I may add, if we again experience the manifold, we will not be aware of the manifold, we will be aware of one appearing as many. And that is the truth. This self or soul or substance, so you can call it in different names. Self is what the Germans tried for Atman. Soul was the old name, and substance is what this dualist or others are talking about. Is all that exists in the universe. That is the reality. Instead of calling it substance or something, we should call it the reality. Is all that exists in the universe. That itself appears as all. That self or substance or soul is, in the language of the non-dualism, the Brahman, appearing to be manifold by the interposition of name and form. Yes, it appears through names and forms. Neither name as a reality, it is only sound, and neither form as any reality because it is ever-changing. And through names and forms, Brahman is appearing. So whatever we see in the world, if we can eliminate the name and the form, we shall see the reality. Or through the name and the form, we can see the reality. So that is the only existence. Look at the waves in the sea. Example he gives. Look at the waves in the sea. Not one wave is really different from the sea. But what makes the wave apparently different? Name and form. So, example, name a wave, form changing, that is a wave, otherwise it is water. Name and form, the form of the wave and the name which we give to it. Without this name, the form would never appear real, because it is changing every moment. Wave. Wave is the name we have given to it, and so it appears something real. This is what makes it different, that's all. If the name wave was not there, all is Brahman. We could not have comprehended a form. We would have comprehended the form as a form of that Brahman. When name and form go, it is the same sea. When the wave dips in the ocean, what happens? Water is not gone. Same wave is there, name and form has gone. Who can make any real difference between the wave and the sea? Only name and form, there is no real difference. So this whole universe is that one unit existence. Name and form have created all these various differences. So differences in forms and names. As when the sun shines, another example, upon millions of globules of water, upon each particle is seen a most perfect representation of the sun. So the one soul, consciousness, reflected on matter. So the one soul, the one self, the one existence of the universe being reflected on all these numerous globules of varying names and forms appears to be various. So appearing on various names and forms appears various. But it is in reality only one. There is no I nor you, it is all one. I makes myself separate than you. You makes yourself separate than me. So I and you are not the names, it is all one. It is either all I or all you. There is an example about this. In Sri Ramakrishna's Sindhi disciple, Hirananda has come. He was a student in Calcutta and he had become a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. After education, he had gone back to Sindh in Karachi. He was editor of 2 newspapers. But when the news reached him about Sri Ramakrishna's sickness, he came to see him. And he is of a very peaceful nature. He is sitting before Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, the blazing fire, you may say, comes and he chants, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I am not this, not this, not this. I am only the blessed form of consciousness and bliss. 6 stanzas are there. After that, the talk does not drift, but Swami Vivekananda starts singing another song in Hindi, Jo kuch hai so tu hi hai. Whatever he is, only you are that. Beautiful song by Zafar, Sufi song. Then Hirananda says, you were talking of I and now you are talking of you. Swami Vivekananda says, yes, I am not talking of two things. Either call it I or call it you. So, that is what Swamiji is telling here. There are no two. There is no difference between I and you. Call I all I am, or you say you are all. The Bhakta generally like to call you all. Jnani say I am all. Or transcendental aspect is I am all. Immanent aspect is you are all. There is no I nor you, it is all one. Then he says it is either all I or all you. This idea of duality of two is entirely false. And the whole universe as we ordinarily know it is the result of this false knowledge. That is called ajnanam. Ajnanam is not absence of knowledge, it is false knowledge. And the false knowledge is that duality is there. When discrimination comes and man finds there are not two but one, so we discriminate what is real and unreal, we will find all that is unreal. And what is real is one. He finds that he is himself this universe. So the difference is lost, he himself finds he is the universe. It is I who am the universe as it now exists, a continuous mass of change. It is I who am beyond all changes, beyond all qualities, the eternally perfect, the eternally blessed. There is therefore but one Atman, one self. That is my reality. So it is called Atman or the self. Eternally pure, eternally perfect, unchangeable, unchanged. It has never changed. And all these various changes in the universe are but appearances in that one self. Changes are in the apparent world. That one itself appears as the world and changes in appearance. Upon it, name and form have painted all these dreams. Why dream? When we see the dream, we feel it is real. Afterwards, it is not real. So our perception of the world also is called a dream because we feel it is real. But on analysis, we find it is not real, or when we wake up to our real nature, we will find it is unreal. It is the form that makes the wave different from the sea. First he said the name makes it different, now he says form makes it different. Suppose the wave subsides, will the form remain? No, it will vanish. Water will remain. Wave will remain. The existence of the wave was entirely dependent upon the existence of the sea. But the existence of the sea was not at all dependent upon the existence of the wave. That means whether wave exists or not, sea is existing. Same thing cannot be said of the wave. If the sea was not there, wave cannot be there. So these are the various examples through which we can understand it. But the existence of the sea was not at all dependent upon the existence of the wave. The form remains so long as the wave remains. But as soon as the wave leaves it, it vanishes. Wave leaves the form means wave goes into the water. Then form is vanished, there is no form at all. It cannot remain. This name and form is the outcome of what is called Maya. Maya, Swamiji has already explained. What appears to us but is not real is called Maya. This name and form is the outcome of what is called Maya. It is this Maya that is making individuals, making one appear different from another. Individuals means different from each other. Yet it has no existence. Maya itself has no existence. Maya cannot be said to exist. This is the important point. Otherwise Maya becomes a reality and Advaita is lost. Maya cannot be said to exist, form cannot be said to exist because it depends upon the existence of another thing. Dependent existence, if you like to call it. It cannot be said not to exist, seeing that it makes all these differences. So if Maya does not exist, how are there differences? And we perceive the differences. So Maya exists. We cannot say it exists because we cannot perceive it. So, this is like trying to define this Maya. According to the Advaita philosophy, then this Maya is ignorance or name and form. Call it ignorance, ajnana, or call it name and form, namrup. Or as it has been called in Europe, time, space and causality. Desh Kal Nimitta. Vedanta has called it thousands of years back, but can't found it out in Germany and said this is Desh Kal Nimitta or time, space and causality. Is out of this one infinite existence showing us the manifoldness of the universe. This Maya or ignorance or name and form or time, space and causation is showing the manifoldness of the universe. In substance, this universe is one. Reality, substance here means. So long as anyone thinks that there are two ultimate realities, he is mistaken. Because Maya is not separately real. When he has come to know that there is but one, he is right. When he has come to know. This is what is being proved to us every day on the physical plane, on the mental plane, and also on the spiritual plane. Today, it has been demonstrated that you and I, the sun and the moon and the stars, are but the different names of different spots in the same ocean of matter. Vortexes. There is no definition of I or you. But they are points in the ocean of existence. Existence of ocean of matter. And that this matter is continuously changing in its configuration. The form changes, that's all. How it is arranged, it changes. This particle of energy that was in the sun several months ago may be in the human being now. Tomorrow it may be in the animal. The day after tomorrow it may be in a plant. Same energy, you cannot see it, but it has gone. It is ever coming and going. It is all one unbroken, infinite mass of matter, unbroken, only differentiated by names and forms. One point is called the sun, another the moon, another the stars, another man, another animal, another plant, and so on. Names are different. And all these names are fictitious. They have no reality. Because the reality is only one. Because the whole is a continuously changing mass of matter. So what do you call sun? If the sun rays have come, the sun has lost them. When I eat the food, I change. So there is no individual separate. This very same universe, from another standpoint, is an ocean of thought, where each one of us is a point called a particular mind. One has to understand this. There is an example quoted by Swamiji. Sir Humphrey Davy, who discovered the lamp for working in the mines, he was showing experiment with laughing gas. And the apparatus leaked and he himself inhaled much of it. Then he actually saw, instead of people facing him, bunch of thoughts. Some thoughts here, some thoughts here, some thoughts here. Like that he actually pursued. At that time he did not pursue the physical bodies. Neither he pursued that they are all forms of one reality. So it depends upon the gradation of perception that we call it body or mind or soul. This very same universe from another standpoint is an ocean of thought, where each one of us is a point called a particular mind. You are a mind, I am a mind, everyone is a mind, and the very same universe viewed from the standpoint of knowledge, third standpoint. Knowledge means consciousness. When the eyes have been cleared of delusions, the manifoldness we are seeing and taking to be real is a delusion. When the mind has become pure, that is called the purity of the mind. Appears to be the unbroken absolute being, the ever pure, the unchangeable, the immortal. So when it can perceive the reality behind, it says it is unchanging and immortal. Unbroken absolute being. What then becomes of all this threefold eschatology of the dualist? What is eschatology? Swamiji himself is explaining that when a man dies, he goes to heaven or goes to this or that sphere, and that the wicked persons become ghosts and become animals and so forth, is called eschatology. What happens after death? This was the dualist proposition. Now, according to Advaita standpoint, what happens of this? It appears so long as our knowledge is wrong. That will be the answer. None comes and none goes, says the non-dualist. None comes and none goes because only the center is different. How can you come and go? You are infinite. Where is the place for you to go? In a certain school, example, in a certain school, a number of little children were being examined. The examiner had foolishly put all sorts of difficult questions to the little children. Among others, there was this question, why does not the earth fall? What is the meaning of fall? Come back to earth. Now, where is earth going to fall? So the question is wrong. His intention was to bring out the idea of gravitation or some other intricate scientific truth from these children. Intricate scientific truth means some name only. Most of them could not even understand the question, and so they gave all sorts of wrong answers. But one bright little girl answered it with another question. Where shall it fall? Falling means coming up to earth, so where shall earth fall? The very question of the examiner was nonsense on the face of it. There is no up and down in the universe. The idea is only relative. What we see above us, on the other side, Americans are seeing below them. They are also seeing above because they are standing in a different direction. If from here we imagine, it is below. There is no up and down in the universe. The idea is only relative. Yes. We feel it is up and down. So it is with regard to the soul, that going here and there. The very question of birth and death in regard to it is utter nonsense. Changing forms, changing bodies, not birth for the soul. Who goes and who comes? Where are you not? Where is the heaven that you are not in already? Our existence is unbroken. So we are in heaven and hell and everywhere. Where are to go to heaven? Omnipresent is the self of man. Where is it to go? Where is it not to go? It is everywhere. So all this childish dream and puerile illusion of birth and death, of heaven and higher heavens and lower worlds, all vanish immediately for the perfect. When the knowledge is gained, we become perfect, and this vanishes, manifoldness. For the nearly perfect, it vanishes after showing them the several scenes up to Brahmaloka. That is nearly perfect. Brahmaloka is where we feel united with Brahman, though we have something separate. So there it gradually vanishes. It continues for the ignorant. If that is not there, it continues, the differences. How is it that the whole world believes in, now next question, how is it that the whole world believes in going to heaven and in dying and being born? Whole world does not believe, Only people of some evolved consciousness believe. Otherwise, general people say there is neither heaven nor going and coming. Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kuta. When the body is burned, nothing remains. But religious people in general, Hindus or Indians, Swamiji is telling what happens. I am studying a book, page after page is being read and turned over, experience is different. Another page comes and is turned over. Who changes? Who comes and goes? Not I, but the book. In relation to that, I appear to change. The soul nature is a book before the soul. Changes after changes is being read and turned over, and every now and then a scene opens. That is read and turned over. A fresh one comes, but the soul is ever the same, eternal. It is the nature that is changing, not the soul of man. This never changes. Reality, Birth and death are in nature, not in you. Nature means appearance. Yet the ignorant are deluded, just as we under delusion think that the sun is moving and not the earth. We see the sun moving, but actually the earth is moving. But because we are going along with the earth, we see the sun is moving. In exactly the same way, we think that we are dying and not nature. Body dies, not we. These are all therefore hallucinations. That means only mental thinking, mental thought, without a reality. Just as it is a hallucination when we think that the fields are moving and not the railway train, that is what appears when we see from the train. Exactly in the same manner is the hallucination of birth and death. When men are in a certain frame of mind, they see this very existence as the earth, as the sun, the moon, the stars, and all those who are in the same state of mind see the same things. That's all. Why? All of us have the same ignorance, all of us have the same type of mind. When men are in a certain frame of mind, they see this very existence as the earth, as the sun, the moon, the stars, and all those who are in the same state of mind see the same things. Between you and me, there may be millions of beings. Between you and me, there may be millions of beings on different planes of existence. They will never see us, nor we see them. We only see those who are in the same state of mind and on the same plane with us. That's all. Example, those musical instruments respond which have the same attunement of vibration, as it were, if the state of vibration which they call man vibration should be changed, no longer would men be seen here. The whole man universe would vanish, and instead of that, other scenery would come before us. Consciousness changes, same place we are sitting, but the scene changes. The different locus. Perhaps God's heaven, that is, and the God universe, or perhaps for the wicked man, devils and the diabolic world. He is seeing all of us as devils. But all would be only different views of the one universe. It is this universe which from the human plane is seen as the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, and all such things. It is this very universe which seen from the plane of wickedness appears as a place of punishment, and this very universe is seen as heaven by those who want to see it as heaven. Those who want to see it as heaven, sakam karmi, so they see it as heaven. Those who have been dreaming of going to a God who is sitting on a throne and of standing there praising Him all their lives, when they die, will simply see a vision of what they have in their minds. So that is what will happen. Same. This very universe will simply change into a vast heaven with same location, with all sorts of winged beings flying about and a God sitting on a throne. That is how it will appear. These heavens are all of the man's own making. So what the dualist says is true, says the Advaitist, but it is all simply of his own making. What you see is true because you are seeing it. And it is your own making, according to your mind. These spheres and devils and gods and reincarnations and transmigrations are all mythology. That means nobody has seen them, but it is there, appears. So also this human life. The great mistake that man always makes is to think that this life alone is true. That is a great mistake. It is only an apparent, temporary life. They understand it well enough. When other things are called mythologies, but are never willing to admit the same of their own position. Yes. That way we do not say it is all mythology. Our own position we hold on to as real. This whole thing as it appears is mere mythology. And the greatest of all lies is that we are bodies, which we never were nor ever can be. So we are not bodies, but we think we are bodies. Advaitic position is explaining beautifully to make us evolve into that. And the greatest of all lies is that we are bodies which we never were, nor ever can be. It is the greatest of all lies that we are mere men. We are the God of the universe. In worshipping God, we have been always worshipping our own hidden self. It is not seen as God, so it is called hidden. But we are worshipping Him. The worst lie that you ever tell yourself is that you were born a sinner or a wicked man. That is the mind and the body, not you. He alone is a sinner who sees a sinner in another man. That means you are on that level, so you are a sinner. Suppose there is a baby here, innocent, appearing as ignorant, appearing as innocent. Suppose there is a baby here and you place a bag of gold on the table. Suppose a robber comes and takes the gold away. To the baby, it is all the same. He does not understand calling stealing or because there is no robber inside, there is no robber outside. To sinners and vile men, there is vileness outside, but not to good men. So the wicked see this universe as a hell, and the partially good see it as heaven, while the perfect, having realized it to be God Himself. Then alone the veil falls from the eyes, and the man, purified and cleansed, finds his whole vision changed. That is the purpose of life. The bad dreams that have been torturing him for millions of years all vanish, and he who was thinking of himself either as a man or a girl or a demon or a god or a demon, man or god or demon, he was thinking of himself as living in low places, in high planes, on earth, in heaven and so on, finds that he is really omnipresent, that all time is in him. Time itself is in me. And that he is not the time. I am not changing with the time, but the time is present in me. Because I am all. That all the heavens are in him, that he is not in any heaven, and that all the gods that man ever worshipped are in him, and that he is not in any one of those gods. Okay. He was the manifestation of gods and demons, of men and plants and animals and stones, even inanimate objects. And the real nature of man now stands unfolded to him as being higher than heaven, more perfect than this universe of ours, more infinite than infinite time. Space was infinite, time was infinite, thing was infinite. More omnipresent than this omnipresent ether. Ether was the supposed substance, what we call Akasha, and Akasha itself goes away in Pralaya. The man does not go away. Real nature remains the same. So he is superior to the Akasha. Thus alone, man becomes fearless. Fear is always from other somebody. There is no other somebody, so no fear. And becomes free, no bondage. Bondage is due to wrong knowledge. Then all delusions vanish, cease, all miseries vanish, all fears come to an end forever. Birth goes away, and with it death. When I am not born, I am eternally there with the birth and death. Pains fly, and with them fly away pleasures. What I get is not pleasure, that is body and mind. I am getting my bliss, my own bliss. Earths vanish, and with them vanish heavens. In the knowledge, we do not see the earth or heaven. Bodies vanish, and with them vanishes the mind also. Body is not there, what is to be coordinated? Nothing. For that man disappears the whole universe, as it were. The whole universe, as it were, disappears because his consciousness is above them. This searching, moving, continuous struggle of forces stops forever, and that which was manifesting itself as force and matter, as struggles of nature, as nature itself, as heavens and earths and plants, the variety of appearance, and animals and men and angels, all that becomes transfigured into one infinite, unbroken, unbreakable, unchangeable existence. And the knowledge and the knowing man finds that he is one with that existence. I am one with the existence, everything is only nothing but existence. So I am one with everything. Even as clouds of various colors come before the sky, remain there for a second, and then vanish away, even so before this soul are all these visions coming of earths and heavens, of the moon and the gods, of pleasures and pains, but they all pass away, leaving the same one infinite bliss, one infinite blue unchangeable sky. Okay. The sky never changes. It is the clouds that change. It is a mistake to think that the sky is changed. It is a mistake to think that we are impure, that we are limited, that we are separate. The real man is the one unit existence. That is the real man. One unit existence. Everything in the world. I am that. Two questions now arise. Now Swamiji is telling about man does not want to believe this because of some questions in the mind, and is now dealing with those questions. Two questions now rise. The first is it possible to realize this? It was beautiful to hear. When we realize it will be like this. Is it possible to realize? Is one question. So far it is doctrine, philosophy. But is it possible to realize it? That means logically it is correct. But can we experience that? It is there, it is. The answer is emphatic, it is. How? There are men still living in this world for whom delusion has vanished forever. So the only proof is in existence of some people. Do they immediately die after such realization? Another question. Do they immediately die after such realization? Not so soon as we should think. Two wheels, now Swamiji explaining the prarabdha karma. Two wheels joined by one pole are running together. If I get hold of one of the wheels and with an axe cut the poles asunder, the wheel which I have got hold of stops. But upon the other wheel is the past momentum. One example, So it runs on a little and then falls down. This pure and perfect being, the soul, is the wheel, and the external hallucination of body and mind is the other wheel, joined together by the pole of work of karma. Okay. That is our present consciousness. Knowledge is the axe which will sever the bond between the two. And the wheel of the soul will stop. What stop? Stop thinking that it is coming and going, living and dying. Stop thinking that it is nature and has wants and desires. It is nature. To think that soul is nature is wrong. The physical entity is not there. And so it has wants and desires, that is all wrong. And we will find that it is perfect, desireless. But upon the other wheel, that of the body and mind will be the momentum of past acts as it will have the for some time. Automatically it drops down after some time until that momentum of past work is exhausted, until that momentum of worked away, unless that momentum is worked away, and then the body and mind fall and the soul becomes free. So when the body falls, the soul becomes free. No more is there any getting to heaven and coming back. That we understood. Not even any going to the Brahmaloka or to any of the higher of the spheres, for where is he to come from or to go into? The man who has in this life attained to this state, for whom from a minute at least the ordinary vision of the world has changed and the reality has been apparent, he is called the living free. So that is the end and aim of life, is to become living free, Jivan Mukta. This is the goal of the Vedantin, to attain freedom while living. We do not have to think of what will happen after death. While living, why should my mind suffer? Why should my mind go into this or that? It is all clear that all that is hallucination. I am ever free. He is called the living free. This is the goal of the Vedantism. This is the goal of the Vedantin, to attain freedom while living. Jivan Mukta is the goal. So no question of death and all that. So a few more pages we shall read on the next term. Okay. Om Paratatve sada lino Ramakrishna samagyaya yo dharma sthapana ratto वीरे शमतम नमाम्यहम. ओम शांति शांति शांति. हरि ओम तत्सत. श्री रामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु. Okay, we are coming to a close. A brilliant lecture by Swamiji. After showing the absolute reality of Advaita, he has described it.
Pranam Swamiji.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.